She constructed a $4 million mansion on my land, not hers, mine, and somehow no one batted an eye. No objections, no investigations. No investigation, just silent paperwork slipping through the system like it was routine. But here's the thing: when you've spent your life studying maps and watching how borders subtly shift, you start to notice what others overlook. What she buried wasn't just a piece of land, it was a long-forgotten promise, hidden by someone who hoped it would never be uncovered. I found it. And what happened after that is the kind of story we tell here on QA Stories. So tell me, if you were in my shoes, would you just walk away? She built that mansion right where my house was meant to stand. The HOA, call her Cheryl, planted her $4 million dream home squarely on my property. But here's what she didn't expect: time. A high school geography teacher, and I know how to read old city maps. When I dug through dusty archives and property records, I found something that made my stomach drop. That land, it wasn't just mine. It was supposed to be a children's park. I'm Connor, and this is how I dismantled her entire operation with one legally airtight trap. Drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, a story you'll want to share. I had just closed on a beautiful, undeveloped plot in Meadowbrook Estates. Nothing fancy, I just wanted to build a modest home of my own. The lot was peaceful, shaded by old oak trees. I could already picture the porch I'd sit on after years of apartment living, surrounded by loud neighbors and sleepless nights. This felt like the beginning of something real. The real estate agent was overly enthusiastic to finalize the deals, something that should have tipped me off. Great investment opportunity, she kept repeating. I was 35, tired of wasting money on rent, and eager to plant roots. Then a pristine white Escalade rolled up, and out stepped Cheryl. She looked like she'd just stepped out of a luxury lifestyle, as flawless, poised, and calculating. Everything about her oozed wealth, from her designer purse to the air of entitlement she carried. She greeted me with a syrupy welcome to Meadowbrook Estates, but her eyes were scanning my land like a hawk, noting every detail: the surveyor stakes I'd placed, the small pile of building materials I'd set near the oak. It was a 20-minute lecture I never asked. 4 black garbage bins were banned. House paint had to be within the HOA's beige-approved palette, and mailboxes had to be exactly 42 inches tall. Seriously, I had to stop and stare. These trees were probably older than me, and she was telling me they needed approval to exist. I forced a smile, but every rule she listed felt like a noose tightening around my chest. It wasn't about community, it was about control. The binder, thick, heavy. She handed it to me like it was gospel. Your HOA Covenant Handbook, she said. It slammed into my hands like a gavel: 5 pounds of over-tabbed nonsense about grass height, fence materials, and exactly how beige your house can be. It sucked all the joy out of home ownership and replaced it with bureaucracy. As Cheryl droned on about holiday decoration guidelines, my elderly neighbor waved from his garden, hands dirty, face warm, and genuine, the exact opposite of Cheryl's manufactured perfection. He seemed like someone who truly lived in his home, while Cheryl managed the neighborhood like a corporate asset. After she drove away in her overpriced SUV, trailing expensive perfume and veiled threats, the neighbor ambled over in that slow, peaceful way retired folks have. Nice to see some young blood moving in, he said. Then, almost offhandedly, they had plans for a community park right around here in the early 90s. Playground, trails, the whole deal. Funny how things like that just disappear. His tone sent chills down my spine. Not quite a warning, not casual either. He shrugged and returned to his tomatoes, leaving me holding that oppressive HOA binder and a growing sense of unease. I should have asked more questions, but honestly, I was still reeling from the fact that trash can color was regulated. 3 weeks later, I'm sipping coffee when I get a certified letter from the Meadowbrook Estates HOA. Bold red urgent screamed at me from the envelope. Inside, a notice accusing me of unauthorized construction, immediate compliance required, or legal action would follow. I read it once, then twice. Surely I'm missing something. I hadn't done anything. The letter claimed I was encroaching on HOA common ground and had to cease all illegal building. I walked outside, staring at my untouched lot. No construction, no changes, nothing. I dug deeper and found that Cheryl had just purchased a narrow strip of abandoned public land along my eastern property line. The paperwork looked official stamped, notarized, but the whole thing reeked of something shady. The timing, the low price, the vague descriptions, it didn't add up. How did she even know it was available? That night, I spread my survey maps and HOA documents across the table. That strip Cheryl bought. It perfectly lined up with where I planned to build. I hadn't moved a single stone, so why the accusation? And the chilling part, how did Cheryl know exactly when and what to buy? How long had she been watching my land? I spent the next weekend at city planning, combing through archives under harsh fluorescent lights. As a teacher, I know how to research on this smelled rotten. Cheryl hadn't just bought one piece of land. Over 5 years, she'd snatched up 7 parcels of abandoned public land, each strategically located by high-value lots, all for pennies. It was a land grab disguised as opportunity. When I asked Ben Carter, the city planner, about it, he barely looked up. Empty public lands wasted money, he shrugged. Good thing someone sees the potential. That word, potential, hit me like a punch. This wasn't luck. It was a plan. When I requested original sales records, Ben suddenly got real interested in his computer screen. Might be in storage. Could take weeks, he muttered. Weeks for digital records. Yeah, not suspicious at all. I felt like I'd seen the edge of a much larger iceberg, and Cheryl was the tip. The real breakthrough came at the County Historical Archives. There, in a dusty cabinet untouched since the 90s, I found it, Harmony Park, 1992. Fully funded, fully built. Now gone. The park's location, exactly where Cheryl's mansion was rising. The plans had been approved unanimously, $2.3 million in public funds. But here's the creepy part. I compared the parks. Old map to current records. Someone had redrawn the lines, quietly, expertly. Cheryl's mansion now stood where swing sets once did. Her pool, right over the old playground. She hadn't just stolen land, she'd erased a community's legacy. I photocopied everything, even budget records, showing the park was completed in 1994 and used by families for years before vanishing. This wasn't an HOA power trip. It was calculated theft. As I walked past Cheryl's construction site, I watched concrete pour into what used to be swing set foundations. It felt like a funeral dreams buried beneath luxury. And the real question gnawed at me: if Cheryl could erase a park, what happens to people who challenge her? I was about to find out. I sent a formal letter to the HOA board, complete with highlighted discrepancies and original maps. If this was a mix-up, Cheryl could explain, right? Maybe paperwork got lost. The HOA office. A small strip mall shared with a tax firm and insurance agency. The receptionist didn't even look up, but her cold tone told me she knew exactly who I was. 2 days later, Cheryl called. 7 a.m., sweet voice, but every word dripped with menace. Connor, let's not escalate. Come by, let's chat privately. I kept my voice steady. If it's just outdated records, you can explain it at next week's HOA meeting. Silence. Then a cold reply. Some matters are better handled through proper channels. Yalek secretly turning a public park into a mansion. I hung up, knowing I'd crossed a line. Cheryl wasn't just playing games, she was removing obstacles, and now I was her next one. Within a week, citations rolled in. My grass, too tall though it was freshly mowed. My truck, illegally parked in my own driveway. Trash can, improper placement, same spot every week. I turned into my own forensic expert, photographing, timestamping, gathering witness statements. I wasn't just building a case, I was seeing exactly how Cheryl crushes dissent. It wasn't war, it was a siege. Not a fight she planned to win with confrontation, but through misery. Until I gave up, I won't. The frightening truth, it was nearly working. There's only so much red tape and harassment a person can endure before wondering if fighting back is even worth the toll, especially when your opponent is a master at making life miserable without leaving a traceable mark, the final straw. A notice slapped on my door, claiming my unauthorized surveying was creating community safety risks. That was the moment I realized I was way out of my depth, battling someone who'd turned property intimidation into a science. I was just a high school teacher, naive enough to think buying land would be the hardest part. Frank Miller came highly recommended by a colleague who'd gone through a brutal divorce and needed someone who could fight dirty legally. Older, seasoned, and shrewd, Frank exuded a calm precision I desperately needed. His office smelled of aged paper and quiet calculation. I laid out every scrap of evidence on his table: park blueprints, altered maps, fishy land deals, retaliatory fines. He studied it all with forensic focus, making meticulous notes, like he was building a case for trial. After a long silence, he looked up, his expression unreadable. "Connor, this isn't just about your property line anymore," he said, tapping the desk thoughtfully, choosing words like a bomb tech, diffusing a charge. "If your evidence holds, we're looking at real fraud, the serious kind with consequences, far beyond an HOA presidency." His gaze locked with mine, and I could feel the weight of what he wasn't saying. "Once we start tugging this thread, there's no telling what will unravel. Are you ready for that?" He tapped the folder again. "Connor, this may go beyond zoning fraud. It might bring the whole operation down." Cheryl didn't waste time. She escalated from petty fines to full-blown character assassination faster than I could imagine. Suddenly, I was radioactive, a social leper. Whispers rippled through the neighborhood. Financial troublemaker, mentally unstable, and my personal favorite, that teacher who thinks he's a detective. The woman across the street who once offered me zucchini now rushed her child indoors. At the sight of me, even the mailman avoided eye contact. I couldn't tell which was worse, being furious at Cheryl for the lies, or feeling betrayed by neighbors I once trusted. It was like watching a live experiment in social manipulation. Cheryl knew exactly where to plant doubt, and it bloomed like poison ivy. These same people had welcomed me just months ago. Now they acted like I was a disease, threatening their property values. The psychological warfare became more elaborate. Anonymous flyers littered the neighborhood. "Concerned residents, is our neighborhood safe?" They hinted at a troublesome new resident who refused to follow community standards. My name wasn't printed, but everyone knew. I found one on my own windshield and couldn't help but admire Cheryl's audacity. She was so sure of herself, she didn't even bother hiding the smear campaign. Worse still, she twisted my legitimate inquiries into the ramblings of a conspiracy nut. "He's harassing city workers." I heard a neighbor whisper at the store, spending hours demanding documents about some park from 30 years ago. She made it sound like researching public records was mental illness, not civic engagement. I wanted to correct her. 1992 isn't ancient history, but facts weren't going to change minds anymore. Even my elderly neighbor, once friendly, came by looking nervously over his shoulder. "Connor, maybe you should let this go," he murmured, unable to meet my eyes. Sometimes it's better to move than fight a battle you can't win. I wanted to be angry, but I saw the worry etched in his face. He wasn't wrong. Leaving would be easier. But how many people before me had done just that and let Cheryl tighten her grip unchecked? Then came the final blow. One Tuesday morning, I found all 4 tires slashed, flat, silent, lifeless, a clear message: "We can reach you anywhere, and you can't stop us." I stood there, staring at my disabled truck, Cheryl's mansion rising in the background like a monument to corruption. I wasn't mad, just drained, cornered. I thought about selling, cutting my losses, moving on. I almost did. But then I remembered the park that never was, the swing sets that never swung, the picnics never had. I thought about the families robbed of that space and didn't even know it. That's when I made my choice. I called Frank, my voice trembling with both fear and resolve. "They messed with my car. I'm done playing defense." "Police report?" he asked, already knowing. "No, I want to go nuclear. Hit them where it hurts." We filed a lawsuit alleging fraudulent land acquisition and demanded a full investigation into the missing park. For the first time, I felt like I was on a fence. Frank was energized, talking legal strategies and citing similar cases, convinced we had Cheryl cornered. But we underestimated her. The courtroom felt cold, reeking of mildew and resignation. Frank looked sharp, composed, the kind of lawyer you'd want when you're innocent. I clutched my evidence like a shield, ready for vindication. Cheryl didn't just defend, she attacked. Her countersuit accused me of harassment, defamation, and malicious interference. Her attorney, polished, expensive, and obviously connected, dismantled our case like it was a joke. "This isn't a legal case," he told the judge. It's a personal vendetta wrapped in outdated paperwork. He mocked our evidence, presenting Cheryl as a community hero and me as a bitter, obsessive crank. The judge agreed. Without concrete evidence of fraud, this is a property dispute. Case dismissed. Just like that, months of work vanished. I was invisible again, irrelevant. Cheryl smiled like victory was always hers. Her lawyer shook her hand. Another win. I stood outside the courthouse, watching familiar faces pass without recognition. I wasn't a threat. I was just another failure. That night, staring at her half-built mansion glowing under construction lights, I hit rock bottom. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe parks disappear for a reason. Maybe I was the fool who couldn't let go. Then Frank called. His voice crackled with excitement. "Connor, sit down. I found something. The original 1992 City Council minutes. They didn't just approve the park, they built it." My heart pounded. Built it. What happened to it? That's what we'll find out. But if a completed public park vanished from records, this is bigger than we thought. I stared at Cheryl's site. She hadn't stolen land. She'd erased a park. Now, I had one shot to bring it back. Frank dug deeper, tracking down Richard Davies, retired HOA maintenance supervisor. Nervous and wary, Richard refused at first. "You don't understand. These people don't forget." But Frank was patient, and eventually, Richard caved. "I helped build that park," he whispered. "Playground trails, picnic areas, even an amphitheater. Beautiful place." The way Richard described it hit me hard. This wasn't just some generic green space. It had been the very soul of the neighborhood, where families built memories and kids felt a sense of belonging. It was used daily for nearly a decade. Sunday, barbecues, birthday celebrations, teens gathering after school. It was the heart of Meadowbrook Estates. Not just a group of houses, but a real community. Now my hands are shaking too, because for the first time, I'm hearing about something. Stolen, not just from me, but from everyone who ever called this place home. I asked the question I'm dreading. What happened to it? Richard's face darkens, years of buried anger surfacing all at once. Whatever he's about to say, I know it'll change everything. Cheryl happened, he spits, her name leaving his mouth like poison. That alone tells me how this all ends. He lays it out how Cheryl, once she became HOA president in 2005, masterminded the park's destruction with a chilling precision. It wasn't random, it was methodical, deliberate, cold. She called the swings a safety hazard, blocked off the walking trails with caution tape that never came down, claimed the picnic area attracted undesirable elements, piece by piece. She erased it, using fake concerns and official-sounding memos as her tools. Richard's voice trembles, his frustration raw as he recounts watching something he helped build get torn apart by someone who saw it only as an obstacle. She planned every step, he says. Every excuse was ready before anyone could even ask questions. Each phase of destruction was masked as responsible management. No one looked deeper. Insurance risks, upkeep costs, public safety. She went to council meetings armed with charts and data that exaggerated the park's expenses, all stemming from repairs she ordered but never completed. Richard's fists clenched tight. In 2010, she got the city to declare the park a public nuisance, he says. Officially labeled abandoned. The records were supposed to go to the county for preservation. His voice lowers to a whisper as he delivers the final blow. Those records, they never got archived. It all vanished, like that park never even existed. From a faded shoebox, untouched for years, Richard pulls out photos and my heart skips a beat. Kids on swings, families picnicking, birthday parties beneath a huge oak tree hall happening on the very plot where Sorrell's mansion now stands. I saved these, Richard says, voice cracking. I knew someone would ask one day what happened to the park. I just didn't think it would take this long. The photos bleed meaning I'm not tired dime, wide awake, because now I truly see the scope of what was stolen. This wasn't about some missing documents or broken equipment. This was the erasure of a community's memory. Looking at those snapshots, children, laughing where a pool now glistens him, no longer angry. I'm something sharper. I'm resolute. I finally understand what we're fighting for. This isn't about legal lines on a map. This is about someone who destroyed joy and called it progress. She didn't just build over history, she replaced joy with landscaping and expected no one to notice. What would you do if someone didn't just steal land but wiped out a whole neighborhood's sense of home? Would you fight for families who don't even know what they lost? As I watch Richard's haunted face and consider Cheryl's web of influence, one thought sends ice down my spine. She erased a park, replaced laughter with concrete hand. Now I'm about to walk into the trap she laid for people like me. The second court hearing feels electric, like a storm has been waiting 2 decades to break. Word of the lost park has spread. The gallery is packed, faces I recognize. Neighbors who wondered why their kids played in cramped yards. Elders who remember when Meadowbrook felt like more than just property lines. Cheryl enters, flawless as always, designer suit, perfect makeup, that practiced smile. But I notice her hands trembling as she shuffles her documents. Her lawyer doesn't look quite as confident anymore, probably realizing he's defending someone who bulldozed a children's playground to put in a pool. Even top-dollar attorneys aren't trained for that kind of moral fallout. Frank delivers our case like a maestro conducting a symphony of truth. The room is still, everyone hanging on his words. He starts with the original 1992 approval for Harmony Park budget, council votes, official seals, proof that this was no forgotten idea, was real. It was built. Next, Richard's photographs, families living their lives, kids playing. Laughter echoing right where Cheryl's mansion now stands. Then the maintenance records, one by one each. Violations signed by Cheryl, each excuse sounding more absurd when read aloud. Each document lands like a punch. I watch Cheryl's composure fray. Her lawyer keeps glancing at her, clearly realizing he's been handed a ticking bomb wrapped in legalese. By the time Frank finishes, the courtroom feels like a wake-exed. It's Cheryl's reputation being buried. She sits frozen, holding on to her mask of control, while her world crumbles around her. Richard takes the stand. You could hear a pin drop. His voice wavers, raw with emotion, as he speaks. I watched them tear down the swing set my neighbor used with her grandkids every Sunday for 5 years. Cheryl told her it was unsafe, but we knew the truth. People in the gallery wiped their eyes. Birthday parties moved to tiny yards, picnics gone. That swing set wasn't just metal, it was memory. And when it came down, so did this neighborhood's heart. His voice cracks. I realize then this isn't about land. It's about stolen childhoods, shattered bonds, things that can't be rebuilt. Cheryl kept talking about modernization, but the only thing that went up was her mansion, her swimming pool, built right where kids once laughed on swings. Then Frank drops the bomb, side-by-side photos. On the left, kids on the 2009 swings, joy lighting up their faces. On the right, Cheryl's luxury pool, tiled and glistening right in the same spot. The gallery gasps. Frank's voice is calm but cutting. Mrs. Cheryl, can you explain to this court how a public playground became your private swimming pool? Silence. All eyes turn to her, the woman who stole their children's joy for her dream home. Her voice cracks. Her hands tremble. She opens her mouth, but nothing comes out. She deflates, no longer the villain, just a person exposed by her own lies. Frank's final blow, according to these records, Mrs. Cheryl, the playground was only 3 years old when you condemned and removed it. She can't respond. She just stares, broken. The judge's voice slices through the silence. The court finds clear evidence of fraudulent acquisition and destruction of public assets. The defendant will forfeit all improperly obtained property and pay $2.3 million in damages. Cheryl's $4 million mansion condemned, set for demolition within 30 days. No cheers, no clapping, just silence. This wasn't a victory, it was justice long delayed. As we exit the courtroom, I see Cheryl alone, staring at her manicured hands like they belong to someone else. For a second, I almost pity her. Then I remember the dust where the swings once stood. My elderly neighbor stops me, eyes wet. Thank you, he says. My grandkids loved that park. I never thought I'd see swings there again. 6 months later, I'm standing on what was Cheryl's lawn, now a park once more. Children laugh, running across brand new playground equipment. A bronze plaque reads, Harmony Park restored 2024 for all our children. A little girl runs through the spot where Cheryl's front door once stood, giggling. Her mother chases after, smiling, and I realize this was never about legal lines. It was about preserving something no amount of money should ever buy. Community, joy, childhood. Cheryl thought dreams could be bought and buried, but dreams echo on. Sometimes they wake entire neighborhoods. Now, where her front gate once stood, kids swing again. I'm not angry, I'm proud. Proud I stayed, proud I fought, proud that, just this once, the good guys won. Sometimes, truth rises especially. When someone's willing to stand their ground,